Some think we're not evolving anymore, that natural selection requires isolation. You don't share that view.
Yeah, I would disagree 100%. I mean, you know, that would mean that there is no genetic variation in our population. We know that's 100% false. I mean, for example, one of the very controversial ethical issues right now with the Human Genome Project is that we know that certain ethnic/racial groups are more vulnerable to certain kinds of diseases than others. The reason why that's so ethically hot is because once that becomes released as information, you have all sorts of reasons why you could target certain groups as being non-insurable, okay? You as a group are vulnerable to disease X, therefore you're a risk. I don't want to insure you. So it opens up the door to a lot of sort of Pandora box type questions that people just don't want to address, and I think for the right reasons, in some sense that they're very, very hot. But the point remains that that variation is there. That's the kind of variation that selection could operate on. We know that certain groups die of an earlier age than other groups. That's selection. It's operating today, right? Now, medical intervention can help with those kinds of things. So that's the good side of humanity, right? We can say, here's a group of people that are more vulnerable to certain kinds of diseases. Let's figure out a way in early development that we can block that, protect against that, right? But those are really tough questions because you're now saying, how do we intervene on the biology? What becomes a reasonable intervention? So take something like autism. This is a developmental disorder. It clearly has genetic sort of foundations because we know much more common in boys than girls. Some people claim an 8-fold difference. There is a genetic difference, much more vulnerability. Well, if we understand the genetics of autism, shouldn't a parent be able to go in and say, if I could delete that problem in utero and stop autism, the child develops and has a much more normal social life? Shouldn't a parent be able to do that?
But isn't that us getting involved in the evolutionary process?
Well, the evolutionary process is happening. Something like Down syndrome, I mean, those people have a much shorter half-life. So independent of our intervention, selection is working on those disorders. It absolutely is. And any disorder that you can think about that has that kind of implications for survivorship, it is operating. The question is now, what can humans do to intervene? And will humans allow that kind of intervention? I mean, the hard thing in these cases is it becomes a complete slippery slope. I find out that I've got the genetics for brown eyes, and actually I'd rather have blue eyes. Well, can I intervene on my child and say I want them to have blue eyes because blue eyes are more attractive? So the slippery slope moves very quickly here. And the question is going to become, as we as a species are confronted with the capacity to intervene, when do we allow it? When do we stop it?